Hi, in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of urban permaculture and why I think cities are ideal places to practice permaculture. So the first reason is that cities bring together an amazing diversity of people. And these people have all different sorts of backgrounds. They also have all different sorts of knowledges and skills and resources. And because cities bring together so many people in such small spaces, it can be a really great place for the sharing of these skills and knowledges and resources. Cities can be a place in which people actually come to from all over the world, and so that can be incredibly valuable for permaculture projects, to have people who are used to growing things in different types of climates, different types of things, or are used to interacting with different types of, bylaws and governments and different types of social situations and crises. And so those are types of knowledges that can come together in cities and provide some real valuable information for projects, especially as we go into a more uncertain future with climate change. The second reason is that cities are filled with non-human nature. This idea of cities as a concrete jungle, an urban wasteland, is simply not true. Cities are filled with non-human animals and plants of all kinds. So there's of course tons of domesticated animals that live in cities, but there's a lot of wild ones. And there are in fact some animals that are flourishing in cities in ways they can't do in the countryside. And this is because in many areas of the world, industrial agriculture has taken over the countryside to such an extent that some animals are flourishing more in cities than in the country. This is also true for a lot of plants. As we know, there are some plants that grow wildly that really like to grow in soil that has been disturbed. And so, for example, those plants are, common weeds in cities, including dandelion, things like chickweed, nettles, dock, burdock. All those things that some people think of as a great nuisance are actually helping to heal soils in cities and have a lot of great benefits and uses for people. And because a lot of urban residents do think of cities as kind of devoid of non-human animals and plants, they don't value that as much. So that's really something that permaculturists can bring to cities in a way that we can benefit people living in cities, is to help them to acknowledge and value that non-human nature that they live with and that they share their spaces with, and help them to do that and share those spaces in a peaceful way that encourages mutual flourishing. Number 3, cities are filled with garbage because it's filled with people. And some of that garbage is just terrible waste that, we have a real crisis of what we're going to do with it all. But some of it is incredibly useful and available for free or almost free, and incredibly useful for urban permaculture projects and practitioners. And so I take advantage of this all the time. One is on recycling day, which in my city, almost any day of the week is recycling day in some neighborhood. I often go out and collect cardboard, and I use that cardboard for my sheet mulching projects. I also don't have one of those no junk mail signs on my mailboxes because I practice vermiculture, or composting with red wiggler worms. And I use the newspapers and some of the flyers that come in the mail for my bedding for the worms. Another thing that I use a lot is that people get rid of a lot of containers that can be really useful for gardening, especially when you have a small space that you're gardening in. So I have a big deck where obviously I can't grow anything in the soil because there's this deck there. And decks are great. My family sits there and eats dinner together. It's nice, but I like to grow lots and lots of different stuff, and it's a really sunny spot in my backyard, and that's a valuable resource. And so I like to gather containers and do a lot of container gardening on my deck. And that's something, the containers are something that you can often find on garbage day. You can often find at garage sales or thrift stores for quite cheap. So those are just 3 examples of the resources that are just available as garbage for free in cities. in cities, you also don't have to necessarily have a vehicle. And so you can really explore in even more depth how to live regeneratively with nature, by not even having a vehicle, by really lowering some of your consumption, because you have so many neighbors that you can probably share tools, share books, and not have to buy things and consume. And so cities are really great with that as well. They can lighten the footstep, whereas in the countryside you might just have to have a vehicle because there's absolutely no public transportation and it's too long for you to walk or bike anywhere in a reasonable manner. But in a city, you can do that. You can live car-free. You can live with light consumption or with consuming used or recycled garbage material, other people's garbage. So these are some of the reasons why I think cities are fabulous places for urban permaculture projects. But the biggest reason for me and my interests is that urban permaculture brings people together in collective spaces. So a lot of people in cities don't have a big backyard where they can practice permaculture. If they want to practice permaculture, they have to find collective spaces to do it, whether that is a public park, a schoolyard, a vacant lot that people have taken over and reclaimed, whether it's a small backyard or a shared backyard or rented space, or whether it's their front yard. Maybe their front yard's the only place they have where they can grow stuff and practice permaculture in the outside. And so it can be really great places in which people have to come together in community. And that can be an amazing way, not just to practice care for people, but also to practice care for the future. Because really thinking about how we can live differently with each other, even in big cities, is a really important part of urban permaculture. It also allows us to really practice and really work through some of the difficulties and tensions and frictions of social permaculture. Because it brings so many different people together in projects that might be on spaces that are like contested, spaces that are public spaces used for multiple things, where people might have a disagreement with what you want to do, and you really have to convince people of the importance and validity of your project. It can really be a way where you can explore radical democracy. And I think in this day and age, radical democracy is really important and something we really need to learn. It's something that could really bring us into some amazing possibilities for people and for non-human nature as well. So those are some of the benefits of urban permaculture. And after you explore those, I'm going to talk about some of the obstacles of urban permaculture. Thanks.